Everyone said she was the kind of beautiful that made men forget where they were going. When Daniel first saw Lila in the bookstore, her laugh sliced through the silence like a bell. Sharp, clear, intoxicating. He smiled. She smiled back. In that moment, he felt like he'd met fate in a floral dress. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that she had picked him long before he noticed her, and every step he thought he took toward her was one she had already laid in place. Daniel was the kind of man who believed in love the way children believe in magic. Steady, soft-spoken, the kind of person who remembered your birthday and actually showed up on it. He built systems that made sense, ran 5 miles every Saturday, and hadn't raised his voice since he was 12. Lila was his opposite. Spontaneous, messy, magnetic. She was everything wild that he wasn't. He loved her in the way quiet men often love loud women, completely. They married in under a year. She moved into his apartment, brought color, chaos, life. At first, he thought he was the lucky one. She'd say things like, "You saved me," and "You're the only one who sees me." And he'd glow with purpose. She didn't work, said she was recovering from burnout, and he nodded like it made sense. When she told him she was finally ready to share her art with the world, that it was time to become who she'd always been beneath the surface, he believed her. Took out a loan in his name. Cleared a room for her studio. She kissed him with a kind of urgency and told him no one had ever seen her like he did. It felt like love, but there was a hum under the surface, a quiet dissonance. She'd vanish for hours without a word, cry over shadows, arguments warped mid-sentence, logic undone until he was the one asking for forgiveness. Her pain became his responsibility, his reactions, too cold, too harsh, too much. Still, he held on, loved harder, tried to be exactly who she needed, because love, he told himself, is rarely simple. And doubt, he'd learned, can feel a lot like failure. He was boiling pasta, humming absently, when he remembered Lila's exhibit was coming up. She had said the gallery would be sending out promotional materials soon. Postcards, press releases, maybe even a feature. On a whim, he decided to call, just to see if dates had been finalized, maybe surprise her by knowing. He found the number in an old email she left open once. A moment passed, then a polite, confused voice answered, "I'm sorry, sir. We've never had a submission or partnership with anyone named Lila Moreau." He froze. "No, that can't be right. She said she signed with you months ago. She said her fall exhibit—" "I'm afraid you've been misinformed." The pot hissed and boiled over. He didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on nothing in particular, the silence louder than the spill. That night, he didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, replaying every story she'd ever told, every late meeting, every networking trip, every lie. When she walked in the next morning, smelling faintly of someone else's cologne, he handed her coffee and asked, "Where were you last night?" She didn't hesitate. "Gallery stuff." He stared. "Which one?" She blinked, smiled. "Daniel, don't start." "I called them." Silence. And then she laughed. Not nervously, not in denial, a deep, unbothered laugh. "Oh, Daniel," she said, like she pitied him. "Finally. You really had no clue? I watched you for weeks before I said hello. You looked so sad, so earnest. You were perfect. The way you listened, the way you gave. You made it too easy. You weren't chosen, Daniel. You were harvested." The apartment felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by memories that refused to stay still. Her perfume still lingered on pillows she no longer touched. Her voice echoed in his mind, rehearsed and honeyed, crafted like dialogue in a script he never agreed to act in. He couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe in the same room without flinching. Every time he looked at her, he saw a stranger wearing her face, someone who once studied his weaknesses like brushstrokes on a canvas. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how thoroughly she convinced him it was love. In the quiet, he began to write. Not letters, not journal entries, blueprints, evidence. Every time she twisted his concern into control, every time she cried and made him apologize, every smile that came only after he bled a little more. The truth unfolded slowly, painfully. He hadn't been loved. He'd been used. He found a therapist, read everything he could on emotional abuse, trauma cycles, the word gaslighting that once felt foreign, but now fit too perfectly. He started naming things, tactics, patterns, traps, and with each name, he took a piece of himself back. It wasn't catharsis, it was survival. And as the walls she built around him began to fall, so did the illusion. It wasn't rage that moved him that morning. It was clarity, cold, calm, liberating. She was still asleep, peaceful even, as if she hadn't hollowed out his chest night by night. He watched her for a moment, not with love or hatred, but with detachment, like studying the final page of a book he no longer wished to finish. Then he got up. He folded her clothes with precision, removed her art supplies from the studio he built, set the things she loved into boxes not out of kindness, but closure. He changed the locks, blocked her number. Quiet hands, decisive movements, not out of vengeance, out of necessity. The note was short, honest. You were right, I was naive, but now I see you, and I see myself. A man who won't bleed for someone who enjoys the sight of it. When she returned that evening, the scream she let out shook the hallway, feral, unhinged. A performance with no audience. She pounded the door, threw her suitcase down the stairs, called him every name but the one that mattered. He sat on the other side, still, breathing in silence like a new language. Not answering was the loudest thing he'd ever done. Healing wasn't poetic, it was raw. Some days, he woke up shaking, remembering her laugh, how it once made him feel chosen, and now sounded like a warning bell. Some nights, he still argued with her in his head, replayed what he should have said, what he should have known. He didn't find closure, he found truth. The ugly kind, the kind that leaves scars instead of quotes. He paid off the debt alone, sat in the quiet apartment with echoes of a woman who never existed the way he thought. He missed her, or more truthfully, he missed the version of himself that hadn't yet been cracked open. But the pain taught him something no love ever had, that self-worth isn't earned through someone else's approval. That boundaries are not cruel, they are necessary. That survival is sometimes the loudest form of self-respect, and most of all, he didn't escape a monster. He unmasked one, and learned never to hand the knife to someone who keeps smiling as they cut. That was enough. Not beautiful, but enough.
The end.